Greetings and salutations. It is I, Mr. Nothing, the museum curator of the weird and the strange, and the host who might be a ghost. This is Around the Weird, where I catalog all manner of unusual literature that I have found in my travels. It's a hot one out there, folks, mainly because we are entering the dead of summer. But fortunately, it is also Poetry Thursday, so allow me to cool you down with some pretty chill poetry. You see what I did there? Today is an interesting poem. It's called Anxiety by Katherine Klingseis. I think that's how you say her name. I've never asked her, and I really should ask her. A little bit about the poet. Katherine Klingseis is someone I know. I follow her on Twitter. We went to the same college. She's a groovy person in general, but she's a fairly recent new author. The book that I'm reading from, You, Me, Us, is her first book that she's published. She's a new author. I hope she makes more, but it doesn't seem like she's leaning towards that direction. She's young, so that's there's still time for that. In the past, she's been a journalist, and she still writes a little on her website, which I will link to in the description because her writing is fairly interesting. Yep, she wrote this You, Me, Us in this poem a few years ago, and I would like to read it to you now. Here is Anxiety by Katherine Klingseis. I feel as if my insides have become pressurized, like I am a balloon being pumped up by an overeager clown. I sense the air filter through my body, pressing against my bones and skin, yearning to escape from its confines. I could burst at any moment, in a plume of nervousness. I will try not to blow you away. So that was Anxiety by Katherine Klingseis. Um, I like the poem, and I particularly like the imagery that she uses to describe this inner turmoil that she's feeling. She says she feels like I am a balloon being pumped up by an overeager clown, and she could burst at any moment in a plume of nervousness. So you really get this, like, I can really picture like a person, like much like Stan in Space Jam, just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and being pumped up until like the anxiety just shoots out and causes a hurricane of sorts. I really like the line "in a plume of nervousness" because although like nervousness isn't a physical quality that you can see, I still imagine like a mushroom cloud exploding from the speaker, uh, and the color of nervousness just is the shape of is the color of the smoke. So I don't know. It seems like it would be a purple color in my eyes. I don't know what color you associate with nervousness, but that's interesting. Another interesting thing is the final line that she wrote for this poem. I will try not to blow you away. So even though that this person is experiencing a lot of unease within themselves, they still find the time to say, oh, I hope you are not uncomfortable by what is happening to me. I hope that my mental health isn't causing you any undue pain. Uh, and that seems like a very out of there, stick at you line. Uh, Mainly because in American society, mental health is viewed with a stigma. Though people with mental illnesses are typically viewed as less than, and somebody who would be having an anxiety breakdown would be like, "Whoa, what is happening to this person?" So the speaker feels a need to apologize for their breakdown, for their anxiety attack. I think that's interesting. But another thing that you should consider is Catherine's status as a woman. In society, women are often told that they need to stifle their emotions or minimize their emotions so as to not affect other people, so as to appear rational or whatnot. Because having emotions is very irrational, as weirdos would say. You could interpret this as her saying that she has to stifle these feelings of unease, even though they're big emotions. She has to stifle them so she doesn't blow away the narrator, because maybe she's been taught that you shouldn't express those kind of emotions. And this isn't out of line with the other works that or the other poems that she's written in this collection. A lot of what she's written about is women having to compromise or hide their emotions or being made to feel less than, as you can see throughout this collection. So I do think that she was trying to make a point with that line, whether it's that specific point. I think feel like that's something that I probably have to ask her more about. But death of author, that means that you could attribute a lot. We'll have a conversation about that some other time. Lastly, I want to say that reading her, not just this poem, but all the poems in the collection, I definitely get confessionalist vibes, that school of poetry. Like W.D. Snodgrass, Sylvia Plath, Anne Sexton. Those writers often spoke about pretty heavy topics like mental health, uh, inequality in society, and suicide often at times. And I don't think she describes suicide at any points in this, but she does talk a lot about feelings of personal inadequacy, inferiority, trouble with relationships, and mental health, as you can see by this poem, anxiety. So that's something that I picked up on there, how it's similar to the Confessionalist. And if I'm being honest, the Confessionalist are one of my favorite branch of poetry, just because of how real and direct their poetry is. To me, at least, that's how it feels. But another possibly unusual influence on this work, and maybe I'm just projecting here, is Carly Rae Jepsen. I don't know if Katherine intended to evoke Jepsen in her work, but a lot of the stuff that Carly Rae Jepsen sings about, especially in Emotion Side A and B, which I feel is a great album, is feelings of heartbreak, feelings of loss, feelings of you know maybe not being at a point where you can express emotions well enough. And that's what I think. Um uh, that's what I think Catherine gets at here. Particularly, there's a poem called "Conversational Chess" where she's hoping that the other person doesn't catch on to her feelings of inferiority. I love that poem, and I feel like that's something that I would definitely hear from Carly Rae Jepsen. Again, whether or not she intended for that comparison to be made is probably up to her. Only she can answer that. But that's something I definitely got there. And since I love Carly Rae Jepsen, that only made me like this poem more. So yeah, those were my thoughts on Anxiety by Katherine Klingseis. I really enjoyed the poem, and even more, I definitely enjoyed her book, You, Me, Us. I definitely recommend that you go out and read it if you can. She self-published it on Amazon. You can buy it for like $1, which is more than a steal. So if you want to read more poetry like that, and especially confessionalist type poetry, I definitely recommend that you go find it if you can. I might put a link to it in the description as well, just to hype her up. Other than that, I think that it would be really interesting to see more of her writing in terms of poetry, but also maybe see her write a full-length book. Whether she does that is up to her, but I would enjoy it. I think. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you want to hear more from me on Poetry Thursdays, particularly about feelings of anxiety and how they resemble that of an overeager clown pumping you up before you explode. So if you like, share, and subscribe, and don't forget to leave a comment below if you have something to say about the poem, or you want to recommend another unusual poem that you think would be very interesting. In the meantime, I wish you a pleasant time in your weird travels, and I bid you a farewell.